Hello everyone, Gabriel Cruz here. I'm going to be giving you my final speech, which is a student's choice speech, and I chose to do an informational speech on the First Battle of Bull Run. Give you a timeline of this battle. This battle took place early Civil War time period. I'll start off with a quote by Abraham Lincoln. "The fight must go on. The cause of civil liberty must not be surrendered at the end of one or even 100 defeats." Okay, so today we'll be discussing the events that led up to the First Battle of Bull Run, the battle on both sides, and the aftermath of the battle. So the credibility of my sources were, I found my main sources at www.history.com and 3 articles that were found at the CTC database link. So let's begin by discussing the events that led up to the First Battle of Bull Run. So 2 months after the Confederate troops opened fire on Fort Sumner, which began the Civil War, the Northern press and public were eager for the Union to make an advance on Richmond. There was supposed to be a planned meeting with the Confederate Congress there on July 20th, but the decision was made by President Abraham Lincoln of the Union to advance on the Confederate troops in Richmond. This decision was made by the early victories by the Union troops in Western Virginia and war fever spreading to the north. Now, this battle was supposed to be a quick battle in their opinion. So this was supposed to be a super easy battle. This was supposed to end the Civil War, nip it in the butt pretty much. This was thought to be such an easy battle that the civilians of Washington were going to march down with the troops and watch the battle on a hilltop nearby. So now that we discussed the events that led up to the First Battle of Bull Run, we'll move on to the battle of both sides. So the number of troops on both sides were, for the Union side, it was 35,000, which is also the north side. And for the South, the Confederate troops, there were 20,000 soldiers. So the generals in command on both sides were Brigadier General Irvin McDowell was in charge of the Union troops. He expressed concern to the president that the 35,000 troops were inexperienced, and he was worried that they were going to lose the battle. But President Lincoln consoled with him, and he said that although your troops are inexperienced, so are you. So he believed that he was going to be able to win. So the Union anticipated a quick defeat over the South. In command on the Confederate troop side was General P.G.T. Beauregard. The Confederates were camped near Manassas Junction, Virginia, along a little river known as Bull Run. All right, the battle begins at Bull Run. McDowell's Union struck on July 21st, 1861, shelling enemies across Bull Run. Over 2 hours, 10,000 Union troops gradually pushed back 4,500 rebels. Reinforcements from the Confederate side soon arrived. The team of battle shifted in favor of the Confederates. The Confederates now lead the battle. By 4 o'clock, both sides had an equal number of men on the field. A big turning event of how the Confederates gained the advantage was a man by the name of Thomas J. Jackson, who earned his nickname Stonewall in the battle. Jackson led a Virginia brigade from the Shenandoah Valley into the battle at a key moment, helping the Confederates hold important ground. The reason why this man was called Stonewall is because in the midst of the battle, when the Confederates were losing, this man showed bravery and just stood on the battlefront like a stone wall, and it encouraged the Confederates to lead a heavy offensive attack and turn the key points of the battle in their favor. So Beauregard orders a counterattack along the entire line and manages to break the Union line. McDowell's Union troops, are now forced to retreat frantically across Bull Run. As they're retreating, they're retreating across the civilians that were watching on the hillside, and the civilians on the hillside started frantically retreating as well. They were scared that they were going to be involved in the battle. So now that we have discussed the battle on both sides, we'll discuss the aftermath of the battle. Despite their victory, Confederate troops were too inexperienced to press the advantage and pursue the retreating Union soldiers. The First Battle of Bull Run cost the Union 3,000 casualties compared to the 1,750 casualties suffered by the Confederates. So let's review the highlights. Today we discussed the First Battle of Bull Run during the Civil War period. First, we learned the events leading up to the First Battle of Bull Run. Secondly, we discussed the battle on both sides. And finally, we learned about the aftermath of the battle. I'll leave you with this thought. I would like you to imagine if the North had won the battle. If the Union would have snuffed out the Confederate capital during the First Battle of Bull Run, they possibly would have averted the next 4 years of the Civil War that followed. So they would have ended a lot of unnecessary suffering. I'll show you a couple pictures I found online of the battle itself. In this picture here. And that concludes my speech. Thank you so much.